Welcome to the How to Be Awesome at Your Job podcast.
It is my view on the working world that there is no such thing as a dream job. You're looking for this thing that doesn't exist. And so your expectations are consistently misaligned with reality. Careers are long and windy, and you take U-turns and left turns and right turns and up and down. It's not this linear career path. Confidence is not something you're born with. It's built by taking action. And so nothing's going to just come to you. You have to have the confidence and the willingness to try something in order to start getting traction.
That's Lauren McGoodwin. She's the founder of Career Contessa, one of the largest online career sites, and co-host of the Career Contessa podcast. Her book, Power Moves: How Women Can Pivot, Reboot, and Build a Career of Purpose, offers actionable advice, tools, and stories on how to build a meaningful career on your terms. And it's also handy for gentlemen, fellas. So you'll learn 1, why the dream job doesn't actually exist, 2, the true drivers of happiness at work, and 3, why to become invaluable and not indispensable. I'm Pete Makaitis. This is How to Be Awesome at Your Job. And now, here's Lauren. Lauren, welcome to How to Be Awesome at Your Job.
Hi, Pete. Thanks for having me.
Well, I am super excited to dig into your wisdom. And could you start us off by sharing? So you've been in this Career Contessa game for a while. Great brand. I've known about it for a while. It existed even before How to Be Awesome at Your Job. So kudos on a long run here. Can you share with us a particularly surprising or counterintuitive piece of career advice that you've come to learn and adopt and share during your reign as the Career Contessa?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been around for 10 years. I've talked to a lot of successful, very fulfilled people. I think the biggest misconception, and I'm sort of very much on brand for that millennial woman who was striving for perfect, was the dream job does not exist. It's a myth. It's a myth that kind of keeps you perpetually stuck. So that's probably the biggest one from talking and basically having the job that I do, which is finding out what does make a successful career. People who are fulfilled, how did they do it? And that's a big one. I think that starts just sort of with like managing your expectations and actually not expecting to have this dream job that checks every box of your life. It's similar to trying to find a perfect partner, right? But with jobs, for some reason, we believed not only do dream jobs exist, but that I should have one. And if I don't have one, something about me is missing and wrong, and I've messed up. And it turn yourself into this personal DIY project to fix that part of your life.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So the implications of that then is if we're not in a dream job, that's okay. Nobody is, because they don't exist. That's your view on the world?
Yeah, it is my view on the working world that there is no such thing as a dream job. And you'll see, it makes a really good saying as a meme on Instagram and TikTok and whatnot of the dream job exists and hustle harder to get that dream job. And a job should check all these multiple boxes. But what I find is that really what the dream job is made up of is this elusive kind of lifestyle piece of a job where it doesn't include hellish commutes or return to office mandates that you don't agree with. It doesn't include manipulative coworkers or bad bosses who actually don't know how to manage. And so you're sort of looking for this thing that doesn't exist. And so your expectations are consistently misaligned with reality. That is equivalent for me of someone who has a very fixed mindset versus having a growth mindset. Someone who can say, hey, my ability to learn and adapt is more important than, okay, my ability to be perfect at this presentation. So I think what happens is dream job isn't just like your job title in your company. It's really inclusive of more of like a lifestyle and a mindset and these realities that one don't exist. As we in COVID, I think was such a good reminder of like, things can change quickly, and being able to be adaptable and be able to lean into uncertainty is really kind of the stuff that makes you more invaluable at work versus the person who's like, I found the perfect job title and it looks really good on LinkedIn and I'm able to share these like, I call it like glitter and glue moments, all these like glitter moments in my career. And it's like, but the glue is what holds the career together. And so that's why I'm actually a big advocate for people always say, well, if I'm not looking for a dream job, what am I looking for? And I will advocate for a good enough job. A good enough job is really practical. It's not perfect. And that's the problem with dream jobs is you're striving for perfect. And that perfectionist tendency is a really tough one to get over. And so that's part of why my advice kind of starts there. one of the things that people will ask me, if I'm not looking for a dream job, what should I be striving for? Which, this is unique to each person, but this is why I'm a huge advocate for the good enough job. The good enough job is practical. It's not perfect. It's not having you strive for that perfectionist tendency that can keep you stuck. And so the good enough job, again, it's practical. It allows you to still have a life outside of work. It doesn't ask that work check every box of your life and fulfill every part of you. And I think COVID was a good reminder of that for people. And I worry that now in 2024, we're starting to forget about that and try to go back to those tendencies. So I would just say, to answer kind of the very first question, the piece of advice I've learned the most that counteracts actually building a fulfilling career is trying to go after that dream job.
Well, so that's a cool distinction there, a dream job versus a good enough job. And I like what you had to say with regard to partners in terms of no human being is perfect and no job is perfect. And so I would say, I think that my dear bride is a dream wife and she's not perfect and I am not perfect. So help us orient to things a little bit in terms of good enough. Lauren, lay it on us. 4 levels of job, if I may. 1, unacceptable. You should probably get out of there as soon as you can. 2, good enough. Yeah, you should probably hold on to this. All right. 3, about as good as actually exists in real life. So hold on with all your might. And 4, just unrealistic. That probably doesn't exist for anybody. So disabuse yourself of that notion readily. So I put you on the spot there, Lauren. Give us 4 levels of job, starting with a rung that's, I should probably get out of here.
Yeah. So an example of this is the person who has their quote dream job. They're a lawyer. They worked their whole life for this. This is the thing they wanted to do. They've got to that corner office, but they're miserable. They're working nonstop. Maybe they're paid well, but it doesn't matter because they have no life. They have no friends. They're not able to have any hobby. And so it's that mix of but this is what I thought I wanted, so I need to continue it. They're burnt out. They're all the negative things. That's sort of what I would think of as the wrong of but this was supposed to be my dream job. I worked so hard to get this. I don't want to let it go. And yet I know that this is not going to work for me long term. And there's a lot of pressure on you and it just never goes away. So that is when I think of as the top rung. Then the good enough job, again, it's practical, but it's not perfect. Maybe it's something that you're really good at. You don't particularly dying over passion for whatever industry you work in manufacturing, but you're really good at your job and it gives you work-life balance that works for you. Maybe for you, that means I want a really high salary and I'm willing to sacrifice having to go into an office and commute every day. But for me, I'm good at this. I don't love manufacturing, but again, I'm good at it. It pays well and it works for the chapter you're in right now, right? Stages of your life are similar to stages of your career. I talked to someone the other day who she got a new job and she's been working at a startup, but she has kids now and the startup has a lot of it can feel a little unpredictable about what's going to happen. So she's I really like that, but I kind of made a little bit of a career pivot and I wanted to go to a bigger company because I was looking for something that was more stable, offered me a remote role, was an increase in pay because a lot of times startups will give equity. And so again, that is a good enough job for her. She's I like this thing well enough. I don't have to be a diehard for it, but also it's not asking more from me than what I think is reasonable given the exchange of money, right? The exchange of the paycheck part for her. That can be a good enough job. Then you have the person who maybe go even a step further where they have this deep passion of being able to reclaim their life from work. And so they have a job that allows them to have more PTO, or maybe they do, I talked to someone the other day, she's a teacher and she's doing a job share with somebody else. So for her, that's a good enough situation. She doesn't want to totally leave the workplace, but she wants to reimagine how it works for her. So there's all these variations of what the good enough job can be for you. The teacher is deeply passionate about what she's working on. She's just struggling with how to make that work with her life. So a job share works. Then you have the other person who's I'm not deeply passionate about it, but I'm good at it and I'm paid well for it. And so that works too. And then the top, or the first rung I said is the person who's I thought I was passionate about this. This is a dream job. It looks good on paper. I'm working for the right company. I've reached all these achievements and it's not working for me. And now I have this piece of me where I'm I feel like I failed, or somehow I have this expectation hangover of this isn't what I expected to be, on top of the fact that I'm burnt out and all these other things. So I think, there's obviously a lot of variations. Careers are super personal, but I think what it comes down to is managing those expectations, understanding that the dream job, this concept of a dream job, is more about the lifestyle that goes with it. And so resetting those expectations and then going out and kind of, I always tell people, like when I was a recruiter, we would always ask people when we got to the offer stage, what are your top 3 priorities? What are the 3 things that are most important to you? Similar to buying a house, unless you have an unlimited budget, you don't get everything. It's like the realtor will ask you, what are the top 3 most important things to you? Neighborhood, number of bedrooms. I think that's also important to do in your career. And I think it starts with aligning with your values. So thinking about what do you really value personally? And then how can you translate your top values into the career that you have? Those are just all good starting places. There's obviously a lot of intricacies to this, but when you are trying to make the shift from dream job to good enough job, I think that's a really good starting place.
All right. So I dig it. So we've got a picture of the lowest level of job, bad, and then a picture of good enough. Could you also paint a picture for us for the highest levels, like about as good as it gets in the real world, as well as this is just impossible and unrealistic in the world of reality?
Like this job doesn't actually exist, but if we could make it exist, this is what it would look like.
Yeah, like the fantasy dream job people have that is harmful, because they are comparing it to an unrealistic thing.
I think that's a little bit like lazy girl job, which is this TikTok phenomenon that went off where it was like, you basically don't have to do anything and you don't have to be involved or engaged in any way, but you're paid really well. I think of that as almost like this true fantasy. Like one, it is an exchange for you creating impact and value for the company. The exchange is they're going to pay you. So you're not going to be able to actually most likely keep a well-paying job that doesn't ask anything of you, that never asks you to take a call that's inconvenient. The realities of life are sort of that is going to happen, right? So to paint that picture, I almost think the comparison is this lazy girl job thing that people were talking about. I'm not saying that that's like, it doesn't exist, but it's, for me, I look at quote lazy girl job, which I hate because you would never hear lazy boy job. But anyway, that's a whole other topic. But for me, it's like, I actually have had a job before. My very first job out of college, I was an admin assistant, and my only job was to basically wait for the phone to ring. Now, I wasn't well paid, and I had to show up to an office, so I wasn't like able to just do what I want all day long. But for me, I was like, as a human being, part of our well-being is we want to be engaged. We want to create something. We want to use our brains. And for me, that was really mind-numbing work. But if we wanted to like paint this picture of this like quote lazy girl job or this like ultimate dream job that really doesn't ask you to do anything, I think people think that would be fulfilling, but I don't think it would. I think us as human beings, we want to move forward. We want to make an impact, and you wouldn't get that in that situation. But I could see that being this like ultimate dream job for somebody.
Oh, Lauren, I love that so much. That notion of a dream scenario would be that you don't have to do much, but you get tons of money. And what's interesting is I think we can see that in real life in terms of if you've been on vacation for a while and it's like, yeah, actually, I'm kind of bored and I want to get to it and start being valuable, contributing somewhere. There's that. And if you look at folks who, I don't think we can even call them jobs, but like they have some sort of a subsidized living situation, like a trust fund or some kind of funds are just flowing into their life without effort. And often these folks are as susceptible or more so, I think the data show, to, depression and other kinds of challenges because there's something that's not quite being met there. So I think that's a great thing to call out, that you might imagine this thing exists, but it kind of doesn't from like a job perspective. And even if you were subsidized magically, that often has its own perils with regard to mental health and fulfillment. So give us that level that's maybe just below that in terms of this is about as good as it really gets in terms of, I wouldn't call it a dream job because it doesn't exist, but this is as close to optimal as one might hope for in this life. Well, now can you paint a picture for, if you had 4 levels, like terrible job, good enough job, then as good as is realistically optimally possible in real life job, and then the fake dream job? I think we covered levels 1, 2, and 4, but paint a picture for number 3, the best realistically optimal job we might have in life.
I think going back to the example of my friend, she was working in one type of marketing. She's transitioning to a different type of marketing. She was working for more of a startup type company that had a little unpredictability with it. She's going to go to a manufacturing company. So on the surface, working for a big, cool brand name, way cooler. The type of marketing she was doing, flashy, cool, really kind of, again, that glitter and glue metaphor I was using, like that fits into the glitter side. But she is moving over to manufacturing, definitely not as flashy and cool, doesn't look as good on, as a big brand name on LinkedIn. And she's going to be doing kind of a more traditional marketing route. Now, for someone who's looking at this, they're like, wait, she's going from this really cool job to this really boring job. But that, for her, she maybe sees the shift from being like, I had my dream job and it hasn't necessarily been a quote dream. I'm really ready to go to a good enough job, a job that I can close my laptop at 5 p.m. because I do have young kids and I want to be able to spend time with them. I get flexibility. I have remote work status with this one. Instead of getting equity, I'm getting a higher paycheck. So again, thinking about what are my top priorities, and I'm going to get them at this place, even though it might not be the quote dream on paper to somebody. For me, it's a good enough job. It doesn't ask me to give up my life in exchange for the job. And that is something that I think is really important. A good enough job is going to take you out of that tunnel vision you have or that fixed mindset that you have. It's maybe going to take the pressure off you that you're feeling right now. Maybe it's going to give you clarity because you're not going to see your workplace as your dream. So you'll be able to recognize like when there's toxicity happening in a workplace more often, things like that. And so for me, when I hear someone who's saying, I'm kind of leaving the cool, flashy thing, I'm going to go over here, but I'm being paid more. It seems like I'm going to have really good work-life balance. So far from the people I've interviewed with, I really like them. It's like they have this surprise factor where they're like, but I should like this big, cool company that everybody's trying to get a job at. Like, what's wrong with me that this isn't kind of checking the box for me? And I think that is the dream job versus good enough job kind of conundrum, is sort of this mindset of like, I should want this thing should kind of fulfill me, and why doesn't it? And so I'm really proud of people who can make the shift over to quote those good enough jobs for them. And it's not easy to make those decisions and determine what are my values, what are my top priorities. Now I have to find a company that fits into it. Like, I'm making this sound like it just landed in her lap, but I think it does take some internal work of getting over these preconceived misconceptions of like what you should want.
That's really cool. And this conversation about dream jobs is making me think about, I guess there's been a recent trend of big personalities on YouTube quitting YouTube, which is funny because I understand that the data reveal that young people now, more than they want to be teachers or firefighters, they want to be YouTubers. So that's the job I guess everyone wants. You think that's the coolest thing. Not an astronaut, but a YouTuber. And so folks who are YouTubers, who are collecting over $500,000 of income for creatively making videos, are like, I can't take this anymore, which is fascinating in terms of a picture of the dream job doesn't exist. And if you dig deeper, you sort of learn that, oh, well, behind the surface of just making cool videos, like they got to manage a team and they got brand deals and books and accounting, and everyone wants a piece of them and they're inundated with pitches. And so it's like, whoa, the reality is, it's not just a creative wonderland of nonstop adulation for me being me, but there's a ton of responsibilities that are sufficient to overwhelm a portion of these people who have what appears to be an ultimate dream job.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's tough. I'm sure it's very hard for them to walk away from that because it's the feeling of like, you're not going to just get this back if you change your mind, meaning like the person who worked all the way to become the partner of the law firm. And I'm only using that as an example because I feel like we hear of a lot about lawyers who are like, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. But anybody who kind of gets in that golden handcuff rut sort of thing in their career, it's very hard to walk away from that. That's why I think it's important to kind of share the message early on about good enough job versus dream jobs. Careers are long and windy, and you take U-turns and left turns and right turns and up and down. It's not this linear career path. And the more we can kind of, I think, spread this education about what a career is or what a career path looks like. I mean, I came from the generation very much of like this ladder and the lean into saying yes to things. And that's just hasn't been the reality I've experienced. And I think many of the women I've talked to and interviewed or experts I've interviewed, that hasn't been their experience. And same with our audience at Career Contessa. It's like your best skill set as to building a fulfilling career is a person who is being proactive and in the driver's seat of their career versus being reactive to whatever is coming your way. And then again, also like setting this mindset of like, I'm part of that role too. And part of that is the mindset piece of managing expectations, thinking about your values, determining kind of your purpose, thinking about, again, I have this phrase about how to be invaluable at work. And people are always asking because they're like, oh, I thought you want to be indispensable. And I always say, look, but if you're indispensable to a role, how can you grow? Because they can't afford to lose you. So that's a different mentality when you're indispensable. The company is saying, you're primed for overwork because they can't afford to lose you, versus the mentality of we don't want to lose you. So you're primed for more valuable work, for example. So again, these are just like, this is the lesson that I think is kind of, if you learn it early on, it's actually very helpful throughout your career. A lot of us, to your point about the YouTuber, the whoever, many of us learn it midlife or later on. And so that's why I'm here to spread this information now.
That's lovely. Well, I do want to hear more about your unique vantage point. So with the Career Contessa podcast and YouTube channel and speaking, you have a fun vantage point. And I know when I dork out and look into all my analytics and things and emails from listeners and see, okay, what's really the hot stuff in terms of what people really want to know and what kind of content, advice, wisdom is resonantly transformational for them. So, Lauren, if I could put you on the spot to share with us maybe 3 super nuggets that you've collected from your time podcasting and engaging with so many folks, what have been some of your favorite discoveries?
I interviewed a woman once on what actually drives happiness at work, and I still love this conversation. And they were relationships, purpose, and autonomy. And I really loved that because I feel like happiness at work is sometimes feel like this very elusive thing. And I guess in a way it is, but I thought that was a really fun conversation. And sometimes you have conversations or you learn something, you're like, wow, that's certainly a puzzle piece to the career puzzle. I think another big piece for me is the difference between, like I said, being invaluable at work versus being indispensable. I really fit this like millennial women stereotype of the like work hard and someone will recognize your work, and very much learned through my own experiences, but also through our audience and talking to people. It's really important to advocate for yourself. There's good ways to advocate, bragging, however you want to call it. Some people don't like it. They're like, instead of advocating, think of it as self-expression. However you need to see this, it is very important that you are able to talk about your wins and your accomplishments and your achievements. So those have been some big wins for me. The other thing I think that's been kind of eye-opening in terms of stuff I've learned is like, you can outperform someone and not necessarily be better than them. And I think that's like a hard reality. And part of that comes down to like, they might be better at telling their story. They're better at managing up, like, quote unquote, like playing the game. And I think that's sometimes, again, like a hard reality to come to terms with, but I also think it's very true. And so again, self-advocating, learning how to tell your story, making sure that you're aligned with the right stakeholders and getting in front of them. That's really important. And also that confidence is not something you're born with. It's built by taking action. And so nothing's going to just come to you. You have to have the confidence and the willingness to try something in order to start getting traction. So those are like, if I could drop it into 3 nuggets of wisdom, those are like some 3 big takeaways I've had in the last year of talking. I have the best job because through the podcast, the YouTube channel, what we do at the site, our whole job is basically trying to find out how can you build a healthy, fulfilling, and successful career. It is not a perfect black and white formula that fits in a box for everybody, right? But there are certain trends that I hear over and over again, and those are a few of them.
Cool. Well, could you tell us a cool story of someone that you've worked with who saw a really cool transformation in terms of they had one perspective and then they learned some things, changed some things, and saw a fantastic result on the other side of things?
Yeah, I have a couple. I have a friend who recently was working for a FANG company and had like their whole career. It was like the Googles, the LinkedIns, the Amazons, the Facebook, like very much like if you looked at her career path, you'd be like, you've got one very linear career path at a certain type of company, was part of the layoffs that happened, has been searching for a job and was kind of only searching one way for a job, which was essentially using her network, referrals, applying, things like that, introductions to hiring managers. So even though she might apply online, it was like she was really relying on her network. For a whole year, she's been looking for a job. She's incredibly talented. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting is She recently hit the easy apply button on LinkedIn to a job that had been reposted a couple of times, had like less than 50 people apply for it. It was a very different industry than she had been in before, but similar job, like job function. Ended up going for like 2 interviews, got a job offer, like meaning the process was like weeks long versus multi-months long. And I was talking to her and she was like, I'm almost afraid to take this because it's the complete opposite of anything I've ever done. And it flips all the logic I've thought of like on its head. And so it was almost like she was uncomfortable with this unknown for herself of like, shouldn't I just keep sticking with what I'm doing? Even if it's not working, eventually it will work. And she ultimately decided she's going to take this new job, couldn't be happier. It very much fits the description of this quote, good enough job. She goes to the office once a month. They really value her experience in a certain industry. She was feeling very discouraged from the job search before. And I feel like this is like breathed new life into her and like watching her like just have this new motivation. And I thought that was really interesting because so many of us sometimes do have this fear of the unknown or the fear of doing something different. And there were a couple takeaways from it. One, there's no right way to job search. So if you're job searching right now, try a lot of different strategies. Yes, tap your network. Yes, try to get referrals. Also hit easy apply to the jobs that you think are really interesting to you. Like, or the companies where you're like, I like this company well enough. I need to learn more about them. And so I thought, again, just from as an interesting story of sort of this like good enough versus dream job and how that mentality can keep you stuck. I feel like once she kind of let go of that, that's when this door opened for a new opportunity. So I love that story. I love the fact that it reminds you that there's no one way to find a job. I know career coaches are going to hate this. And look, we have career coaches on Career Contessa. I will share the same advice that find a target company, network. Absolutely. This job market absolutely has taught me like there are no rules. So you have to try a little bit of everything and test out and see what strategy works best for you. But ultimately, I think also going in with, if you can manage your expectations to not be too fixed mindset on it has to go a certain way, I have to end up in a certain thing, or if I don't get this thing, my whole life is over. It dictates the next 10 years of my career. If you can kind of drop some of those, I think it's a really freeing thing as well.
Cool. Thank you. Well, now I'm curious, anything else you really want to make sure to mention before we shift gears and hear about some of your favorite things?
Well, my book is called Power Moves. So if you're interested in exploring more of these topics related to ditching the dream job and going after the good enough job, Power Moves is really a framework on how to build a career that is based in a proactive approach versus a reactive approach. And then, of course, my podcast is called Career Contessa. I've made it really easy. And that's where I get to talk to people who share like what drives happiness at work. And I love being able to have those interesting conversations. So if you're interested in podcast advice, career advice, check out Career Contessa as well.
Lauren's about to share her favorite things. And one of my favorite things is discovering an insight that enhances performance. And our sponsor, Wild Health, helps you do just that by delving deep into what helps your body perform at its best. Wild Health was founded by 2 emergency room physicians to provide what they call precision medicine. They use your genetics, your biometrics, and lifestyle data to help you determine what your body needs as far as nutrition, exercise, sleep, supplements, and more go, so you can function at your best now and in the long run. Here's some wild facts. 89% of Wild Health patients showed improvement when they discovered a previously hidden cause of brain fog or drowsiness in their report. And the report, oh my goodness, it is fantastic. 45 beautiful pages of custom insights unique to your body, along with clear, actionable recommendations. And I get support from a real human doctor plus a health coach to help me implement those recommendations. Impressive. And Wild Health is generously extending How to Be Awesome at Your Job listeners 20% off the cost of membership with the code AWESOME. So head over to wildhealth.com/awesome and use the code AWESOME at checkout. Make this commitment to yourself and start taking control of your health today at wildhealth.com/awesome. All right. Well, now could you share with us a favorite quote, something you find inspiring?
My favorite quote that I learned from someone the other day is, it's this or something better. And I think that is an incredible quote, especially for 2024 with this economic climate, this tough job market. It's this or something better. So remind yourself of that when you feel like I'm not making any progress, I've got a rejection. And I always try to remind people, if they don't look at your resume, they're not rejecting you. Like meaning my point being like, they looked at your resume for 7 seconds or not at all. Like having a fresh mindset of that's not necessarily rejection in that way, but it's this or something better. So.
Mm-hmm. And a favorite study or experiment or bit of research?
I am loving people who are doing research on remote work or distributed work. So there's a lot of CEOs out there who want to call everyone back to the office because of productivity, collaboration, and what these people who do this research are finding is like absolutely not necessary to be in office to collaborate, to be productive. And they're actually doing a lot of research on what does drive those things.
Awesome. And a favorite book?
A favorite book, Atomic Habits. I love that book. I quote it a lot. That and Essentialism. They were books I read at the right time in my life to help me kind of get organized and focus, and gave me that fresh perspective that was really important.
All right. And a favorite tool, something you use to help you be awesome at your job?
Loom. I love Loom. You guys have never used it. You can send video recordings where basically like you're able to audio record yourself, or you can be on video and then like a screen share. So I'll use it for trainings, it's great for asynchronous work where you want to be able to send feedback to someone on something. So on our team, we're a fully remote company. So I will use Loom to send feedback on, hey, I read this article, here's something I would change. I'm going to edit here, edit there. Sometimes we'll use it for resume reviews for clients too. So I love Loom. Absolutely.
All right. And a favorite habit?
Favorite habit, probably a to-do list. Definitely a to-do list. And I'm not fancy. I use pen and paper. But that's probably one of my favorite habits. I also am really big on 10,000 steps a day. So I just got a walking pad and I have a standing desk. So that's a big part of my personality is I'm very pro 10,000 steps a day.
Okay. And is there a key nugget you share that really seems to connect and resonate with folks that quote it back to you often?
Certainly just the dream job myth, I think, is something that people are starting to know me by, is that they'll say, I know you don't believe in dream jobs, but I'm looking for a dream job, or, something like that. Or I know you don't believe in dream jobs, but then what do I find instead? So I would say the dream job myth is definitely something I'm quoted back and used on myself a lot.
And if folks want to learn more, get in touch, where would you point them?
Everything is on the Career Contessa website. So careercontessa.com. The podcast is called Career Contessa and the book is Power Moves. And then you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm Lauren McGoodwin on LinkedIn, and I post tips daily on there, and I would love to connect with you.
And do you have a final challenge or call to action for folks looking to be awesome at their jobs?
My final action, I think, going back to one of the nuggets of things I've learned is, how can you advocate for yourself this week? Or how can you make your accomplishments or achievements known this week? Does that mean you can send a quick email to your boss of, here's a recap of what I've been working on? Can you mention yourself in that Slack channel? Like, here is my win for the week. What can you do to make sure that you are advocating and letting your wins be known?
All right. Lauren, thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
I really appreciate Lauren's perspective about how a dream job doesn't exist. And on the one hand, that kind of feels depressing, like, oh no, I guess I'll just give up. I lose some of the drive, the hustle. But on the other hand, I think it could really be encouraging in terms of like, oh, wait a minute, I'm not missing something that doesn't exist. And if you think one does, that's really intriguing to go ahead and seek out that realistic job preview and see, hey, what's cool about this job and what's not so cool about this job? And how does that match up with what I value, my style, my strengths, and that good stuff, to get a real clear sense. Oh, is this a good enough job for me? Is this a fantastic, almost as good as it gets job in the real world for me? Powerful stuff from Lauren. If you'd like to see a summary write-up of the actual wisdom of this conversation, please sign up for the gold nuggets at awesomeatyourjob.com. You'll also unlock the archive of all of these summary write-ups. And the particular show notes and transcript for this episode are found at awesomeatyourjob.com/EP940. Hope to catch you next time, and peace.
Thanks for listening. To get the most out of the show, we recommend 2 key things. First, check out the extra resources at awesomeatyourjob.com. You can find this episode's transcript and links, as well as the perfect episode for your situation. You can search the full text transcripts of hundreds of episodes or explore episodes tagged by topic and competency covered. Second, subscribe to the podcast and get future episodes automatically. You can subscribe by telling Siri and several other smartphones and speakers, subscribe to the How to Be Awesome at Your Job podcast, or by tapping subscribe in your podcast player of choice. If you'd like some extra help figuring out podcasts and how subscriptions work, visit awesomeatyourjob.com/subscribe for guidance. Hope to catch you on the next episode of How to Be Awesome at Your Job.